As you can see,
Leo,
there's a press conference going on right now with the governor of Florida, and we also see the lieutenant governor of Florida and the mayor of Surfside. He just said that he agreed with the decision of Miami-Dade's Mayor Daniela Levine Cava to demolish the adjacent structure. The adjacent structure was demolished at 10:30 at night last night, and within a few hours they were able to go back in and continue their search and rescue efforts, and that's when they found 3 more bodies, raising the death toll to 27. We also know that Mayor Levine Cava assured the public that they did all they could to figure out if in fact there were pets inside that building. They used drones, they used thermal imaging and other efforts, but they weren't able to find any pets. So that's when they decided to continue with the demolition because this structure was causing a lot of concerns for the rescue personnel due to Tropical Storm Elsa that was predicted to come to the county of Miami-Dade, but now the path has moved westward, but the structure was very unstable, so that was one of the reasons. And also the other reason is because there are areas that the search and rescue personnel couldn't access before due to the instability of that structure, and now that is demolished, they have been able to go to different areas to try and find survivors. One of those areas is the parking garage, but so far they have located 3 bodies and they haven't found any survivors.
Yeah, it's a shockingly bad scenario. Thank you very much, Leo. We appreciate it. All right, former President Trump continues to fight back against New York prosecutors who are vowing to keep the pressure on his business. But take a listen to what Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz told us on Saturday about the current charges against the Trump organization. Alan.
You can't get a sitting district attorney indicting somebody for failing to pay federal income taxes when the IRS hasn't even gone after him. But one of the charges, a major charge, is grand larceny against the United States government. That shows the extent to which they are prepared to stretch existing law and the Constitution to give them authority over federal taxes. It's absurd.
It really is. So for more on that, let's welcome in Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Good morning, Mr. Attorney General. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning. Happy 4th or day after 4th.
Exactly. It's Freedom Weekend. That's all. You know, I spoke with you on Saturday about some of the, exactly. I spoke with you on Saturday about some of this stuff, but your thoughts on New York City's relentless push to take down Trump? I mean, is this political tyranny?
Absolutely. This is exactly what they've been talking about doing to him for years, from the New York Attorney General, from the District Attorney's office. It's all about politics. It's all about, what is it? What did Stalin's guys say? Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. And they'll just keep digging and trying to ruin their lives because they disagree with them politically. And that is so sad to me that type of action is taking place in this country. But that seems to be the direction of progressive Democrats and unfortunately sometimes even Republicans. It is not the right direction for the country.
Yeah, I mean, look, Letitia James actually, she ran her campaign on going after Trump, says we're going to get him. I mean, should she give this up in light of that, or recuse herself, or somehow be completely removed from this? I mean, like, where do we go from there?
She needs to be held accountable. People are doing this type of action against individuals because they disagree with them politically and going after political figures and investigating them for year after year after year. And looking at every aspect of their lives, trying to destroy them because you disagree with them politically. And, you know, you can imagine somebody that has that many transactions, that many businesses. Is there a way to go to a grand jury and get probable cause? Probably, but that doesn't mean they've committed a crime. And it just is sad to me that they try to destroy people today because they disagree with them politically. And it's happening not just to Donald Trump, it's happening all over the country.
Yeah, well, you know, the craziest thing to me about this whole scenario is that they literally were like, hey, we're going to go investigate him and see if we can find something. Not, hey, we found something, now we need to investigate it, which I believe, and I'm not a lawyer, but you are, the opposite of how our Fourth Amendment and how our judicial system should work, no?
No, it's exactly the opposite. There's supposed to be some idea here that you've actually committed a crime instead of like, look, we don't like this guy, And believe me, I've been through this too, and I'm going through this. I've been through this with other people. I've seen this over and over, this new pattern over the last several years where we want to take you out of office because we dislike your politics. And so we are going to find something, and we're going to make your life miserable and make you want to leave politics. And then it discourages good people who are law-abiding citizens from wanting to run because they feel like they'll be convicted of something somewhere down the line by somebody because they are disagreed with on their political views.
Yeah. To me, that is, I mean, like, we don't live in the Soviet Union. We live in the United States of America, where you don't go after your political opponents. I mean, as much as I would love to have seen Hillary Clinton thrown in jail for her email scandal, I mean, like, look, I was a SEAL. I've dealt with classified material. It would have given the impression of political prosecution if people went after her. So against what I thought would have been better judgment, they didn't do it. And I figured that would set precedent, but apparently, I mean, it's not, right?
Well, unfortunately, it's not being done even-handedly. I mean, the people do commit crimes, sometimes in political office, and they should be held accountable, but it shouldn't be done for political reasons. They shouldn't go after Hillary Clinton. They shouldn't go after any Democrat for political reasons. They shouldn't go after any Republican for political reasons. But it seems like today they may have legitimate issues on some Democrats, and the FBI and others just walk away from it, versus this witch hunt with President Trump and other Republicans that I've seen. It seems like it's all politics now, and it takes away the credibility and the respect that we might have for federal law enforcement or law enforcement in New York or wherever this is going on.
Yeah, no, they're using valuable resources, because every FBI agent that is not used to take bad guys off the street is an FBI agent that I believe is wasted, and that appears what they're going to use. But I want to talk about Trump's visit to the border of Texas last week. Look, you were there. You had the roundtable discussion with the president. Talk about the presence and like his commitment. Like, the guy's been out of office for 6 months, and it's still frontline news that he goes to the border. He even forced Kamala Harris to go.
Look, he has a passion for this country. I could see it when I was with him. I was with him all day, with the governor as well and the lieutenant governor. And I think he has this amazing love for the country. And I think he's not willing to walk away and let the country go down the tubes and let the border be a disaster and let some of these other issues related to election integrity be a disaster and see our country go the wrong way. And so I really appreciate that he's still committed to this country, that he shows up, takes his time. He's not getting paid for this, and he could be out golfing every day. Instead, he's focused on betterment for our country.
Yeah. Now, contrast this with Kamala Harris going to, let's call it, the border. I mean, she was technically at the border, but she went to visit El Paso. What was the contrast and the accomplishments versus Trump and Kamala on this?
Well, one is it seemed like President Trump was a motivating force behind her even showing up on the border. So I'm glad she came. I'm glad that she showed up somewhere. Maybe she learned something. But she could have learned more by going to a place that was more of a problem for the state of Texas, more of a problem for the border agents. They would tell you that. They would tell you that where we were in the Rio Grande Valley is much more of a problem than El Paso. So I guess I'm happy that she at least did something. And even if it was motivated because President Trump was there, she at least showed up. But she could have learned so much more. And I wish that they would take the time to talk to the people that are actually dealing with the law enforcement issues, whether it's our local sheriffs or whether it's the state police or whether it's our border agents. I wish she'd take the time to understand what they want instead of making up their own little policies that don't work for any of those guys.
Yeah, Mr. Attorney General, I find this hard to understand. It's like, look, if you open our borders and you don't enforce our laws, like, it's pretty clear that, bad guys will do bad things. It's kind of like science, from the party of science. And when you have somebody who's, look, Kamala Harris, by all stretches of the imagination, has really kind of ignored the problem at the border. Biden put her in charge of it. She said she's in charge of it. She went 1,000 miles away from the actual problem area. So what do you see? What if you were advising, Vice President Harris tomorrow? What would you tell her on how to solve this problem?
I think it's pretty easy to know what the answer is. Now, re-implementing what was done was going to take more effort because I believe that President Trump kind of figured it out. It was a disaster under the Obama administration. We were dealing with border agents who couldn't do their jobs, and I was talking to them, and they were telling me they were being told, don't basically enforce the law. So, one, I would tell her to enforce the law. That's the first thing. And start telling people we're enforcing the law. We're not going to let you cross in. just because you want to. We are going to enforce the law. Second, I would go back to the policies at work. I'd go back to the Stay in Mexico program that dealt with the massive loophole of asylums. I would go back to the no more catch and release. I would start continuing the building of the wall. Let's go back to the things that were actually working. And you can look at the numbers from a year ago. These policies, while nothing's perfect, they were working to help stop the drug cartels, the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, and just the destruction of people's lives.
Right. But why can't Democrats grasp that? Why can't they see it?
You know what? I have to believe this is what they want. I mean, when you already know what the policies of Obama did, and you knew the results, and then you re-implemented those policies versus the policies that were working to stop illegal immigration, drug trafficking, cartels growing massively wealthy, you must want the results. The results of illegal immigration, whether it's for voting, destabilizing Republican states. But the sad part is they also know that people are going to die. They know that more people are going to be addicted to drugs. They know that the cartels are going to become stronger. They know all of this. And for those other benefits, whether it's voting or whether it's destabilizing Republican states, they're willing to trade. They're willing to give the cartels that and destroy people's lives to do it.
Yeah, but the headlines are always different. You know, under Trump, it was they're putting them up in tents. Under Biden, it's like soft-walled shelters. I mean, why can't they just call it the same thing?
Well, we know the media doesn't want the transparency. They try not covering it. I've been to these some of these detention centers and seen the conditions these kids live under. Even with the improvements, they're all packed in. They're being sent off to places they won't even tell us where they're going. The cartels, I'm guessing, still have control over these people as they move around the country, and yet the Biden administration doesn't seem to care. They just don't seem to care. Yeah.
I mean, it is really shocking to me, and I wish they would take more appropriate action towards this. You know, beyond the fact of securing our border, it's just a compassion thing. If you open that border, people are going to die in the border trying to get here instead of coming in illegally. Ken Paxton, Attorney General for Texas, thank you very much for joining us, sir. We appreciate it.
Yeah, have a great rest of the weekend. Thank you.
Against anybody, I'm running for Texas. West may have some competition, though. Governor Greg Abbott, who is up for a third term, may also be eyeing a 2024 presidential bid. He's already locked up the endorsement from Donald Trump. And coming up, we'll see the recap of the former president's rally in Sarasota, Florida with congressional candidate Corey Mills. Save America rally. Absent, though, Florida Ron DeSantis. He was doing governor things in Surfside, the site of the condo collapse that we've been tragically covering here. Here's what Trump had to say, though.
Obviously here in the state of Florida, on the other side of the state, dealing with the condo collapse in Surfside, Florida. I know that you spoke with Governor DeSantis. You agreed with his decision not to come here today.
Well, we mutually agreed, and I just thought, you know, he's working very hard. He's doing a very good job, and he should be there. I told him, I said, you should stay there. This is not that important for you. He, of all people, should be there.
So, you know, let's welcome in Corey Mills. He's running for Congress in Florida's 7th District. He's also a combat veteran. So, Corey, I mean, what do you think about this, and will this have any effect on the 2020 tensions that we're seeing coming up?
Well, let me first start off by thanking Newsmax. You know, Newsmax is one of the fastest rising. I think will end up taking the top spot in mainstream media. And it's because you guys don't shy away from real news. You guys are willing to cover the Trump rally as well as for all the other pieces. You know, for President Trump to come to Florida, a state that he won by a large majority, I think that it says a lot about kind of his conservative movement, where it started and kind of where it's going to continue to grow. I think that the president definitely put across the messages that America cares about when it comes to the opioid drug pandemic that's going on as a result of the open border policies of Harris and the Biden administration. I think that it also is very important for him to go ahead and ensure that he reinvigorates the conservative movement, because that is very much alive. And whether people like it or not, President Trump is here to stay, and he's the leader of the Republican Party.
Yeah, no, I think it's an important message that a lot of people just, you know, a lot of the anti-Trumpers, even in the Republican Party, just can't still grasp the fact that why are thousands of people still turning out 6 months after he left office. Now, look, I was a Navy SEAL. You're a combat veteran. We have a lot of the similar feelings on some things. Now, former President Trump also talked to our own Heather Childers Saturday about the Biden administration handling pulling troops out of Afghanistan after Bagram Air Base was cleared out this weekend. Watch this.
Well, we had it done, and I think it would have been very smooth. I pulled them out. I made it so that nobody could have stopped it because I wanted to get 21 years is long enough, as you know, long enough. and they're going to have to now fend for themselves, and hopefully they'll do well. But I said we're coming back home. You know, they call them the endless wars. I hope he does well. I hope he does well.
Yeah. So, you know, I have my own take on this. I was in Iraq during the drawdown in 2009, and I saw what a catastrophe it was. What's your take on the Afghanistan situation?
Well, again, like you, Carl, I was a member of the Joint Special Operations Command. I spent over 7 years in Iraq. I spent over 2 years in Afghanistan. You know, I'm not about meeting arbitrary timelines or trying to set false, political optic narratives, which is what the Biden administration has done. I am all for ending these endless wars. I think that our goal and our achievements in Afghanistan was to go ahead and rid it from being a safe haven of terrorism. That had been done. Our job is not to build democracies amongst countries. We have put trillions of dollars in there. And I agree fully with President Trump's original thing with CENTCOM Commander McKenzie to pull out. However, I don't agree with the Biden administration's take to spend billions and billions of dollars more to go ahead and reinforce these bases for the Afghan military after the trillions we've already spent in, while pulling out troops at the same time in an arbitrary timeline. Again, I think this puts our troops at risk, and I think that it's time for the Afghan government to lead themselves.
Yeah, we used to fight wars based on going home when the enemy was dead, but I guess now it's about, hope and change and things like that. The thing is, I mean, you and I have both seen this. You turn over these things to the Afghan military and things like that. They don't have the same accountability as American citizens. Oftentimes we'd turn over a base or an outpost or something like that. It would be cannibalized for any useful parts by the locals, and then it would be completely rendered useless within, I don't know, a week of turning it over. Are we going to see that same fate in Afghanistan?
Unfortunately, I think that is going to be the case. I think you're going to see where a lot of the things that are worth a large amount of money will end up being sold off. The corruption of the government will go ahead and, get what they want out of it from financial means. And it'll go back to being a skeleton of a base that can't be reinforced, can't be protected. And unfortunately, without a U.S.-led operation, they haven't been successful in even repelling the Taliban as they continue to grab more villages. But again, I'm all about an America First agenda. I do not see our, remaining in Afghanistan being anything that supports the America First agenda. I do not see us putting more troops at risk for a war that we are not meant to fight. And I think that it's time, again, after the trillions of dollars in 20 plus years and thousands of lives, it's time for the Afghan government, the Afghan National Army, and the Afghan National Police to step up and start doing what they were trained to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. But during his rally on Saturday, the former president defended the 4th of July, and this is something that's near and dear to both of us, and I think a lot of folks. He denounced the cancel culture, this anti-American movement, this sentiment that we see coming from these activist groups. They're trying to destroy American symbols. Take a listen.
It will not be canceled, by the way. It won't be canceled. And we will teach young people across the country that George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock will forever be American heroes.
The cancel culture is going way too far, I think, obviously. But you're running for Congress. If you get into Congress and they are going to try to cancel things, there's going to be more bills. What do you say about these people who are trying to take away the founding principles of this country?
Well, let me first just go ahead and say the first thing that I would cancel is this entire idea or ideology of critical race theory trying to enter into our education, our military. It's divisive rhetoric. We saw this type of divisive rhetoric from Congresswoman Cori Bush and the Democrats who want to go ahead and say that the American flag, the flags that came, draped over the coffins of our brothers whenever we fought for freedom and independence, that is offensive. They want to talk about how Independence Day is a white liberty. I mean, it's just complete, drawing a racial narrative so they can continue to try and go ahead and play identity politics. When I go into Congress, I can tell you right now, our educational systems will not be looking at critical race theory. Our military will be the strongest, and I will continue to vote to increase their budgets and help them to be better war fighters to protect our national security. The one thing I will not do is fall prey to men and women's sports and this whole idea of what that means, or critical race theory and division in our country. I don't support it. I won't be a part of it. And that's the part of cancel culture I will agree with.
Corey, running on a platform of normality. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, bud.
All right, still ahead this hour. Here we go again. Another ransomware attack. This one has the president fumbling over his notes, plus the New York Times. Now, Biden paused for several seconds as he appeared to pull a card out of his jacket to look at the talking points of the attack. The president says all resources of the government are available to combat the hack. But officials say that thousands of victims were hit with at least 17 countries on Friday. The Revel Group is demanding up to $5 million for the ransom. Well, joining us now is the co-founder of the Tea Party Patriots, Jenny Beth Martin. Also with us, host of Dan O'Donnell's show on News Talk 1130 in Milwaukee, Dan O'Donnell, and the host of the Ari Hoffman Show, 570 KVI, Ari Hoffman. All right, guys, want to go to this? You know, I guess I'll go to you first, Ari. How should the public feel about these constant gaffes and lack of cognizant ability from the president?
Beyond concern. I mean, I want you to think about if this was President Trump and all this was happening with, they were asking for him to take cognitive tests and he didn't have gaffes like this. And now Joe Biden's having them all the time. I unfortunately had a relative who suffered from dementia, who suffered from Alzheimer's, who had a cognitive decline, and I'm watching it happen to the President of the United States. And the saddest thing is the answer he was looking through those papers for is something you say when you don't have the facts at your disposal. Oh, sure, we're going to bring the full resources of the government once the investigation is complete. That's a standard response, and he couldn't even come up with that. He is having an ongoing war with himself, and he is losing the battle. And I would say, and even though it's unpopular, I would say at this point, just turn it over to Kamala, say, thank you very much, Joe. And for better or for worse, just deal with it that way.
Yeah, but Jenny, how should we go about trusting a president right now? I mean, this is a serious problem. You know, he should, a U.S. president should project strength on the world. So how should we trust a guy who's supposed to be at the helm of this stuff, who has to refer to a note card for something that's holding $5 million ransoms against American businesses?
And asking for $70 million worldwide for to relieve the attack. It is very troublesome, and it does not. He is not projecting strength to the rest of the world. If America and our president can't deal with this problem, how are other countries going to be able to deal with it? I think it winds up being dangerous for America and for our national security as well. We have to know that our computer systems can withstand these kind of attacks. Otherwise, it can harm our critical infrastructure and create real problems. And we have a president who said he just was briefed on it before getting off of the airplane and could not even remember a basic standard response to exude strength to the rest of the world.
Yeah, Dan, I mean, this is a good point. So they have, you know, he's been briefed on this stuff, but these things are happening seemingly a lot more under President Biden. This comes after he gave a list of 16 targets that, you know, Putin should not go after. I mean, what are we to believe here?
Well, we're to believe that America is a less safe place with our digital infrastructure because we've got a president who, from the time of the Colonial Pipeline hack, was actually encouraging companies to pay ransoms. Well, what we've known through 50 plus years of terrorism is that when you pay terrorist demands, terrorist activity increases. This is the 100% wrong way to go. And this speaks to a fundamental weakness in the Biden administration. It's this naive belief that if we just give bad actors what we want, if we just sacrifice a little bit of our wealth, well, then they'll leave us alone. That doesn't work. It's never worked throughout human history. And it's shocking to me that the president, but not surprising, that the president would think that it would work now.
Yeah, to me, it's incredibly shocking that we would be even sitting here. But Ari, you know, do we have I mean, it appeared under Trump we had the means to defend against this stuff. I mean, America has some of the smartest people in the world working on some of the most up-to-date computer systems in the world. How are we so vulnerable to this?
We talk about big tech all the time. We talk about the companies that we have in our country and whether we should be regulating them with regard to freedom of speech and such, and yet we fail to use their resources because what the government would rather do is rather say, okay, somebody needs a job, we'll hire this guy who has some computer training and he's going to do our security system. We saw this happen across states where millions, if not billions of dollars was defrauded from states on unemployment funds. Washington State, almost $1 billion. Los Angeles, California, so much more, even from people in prison. And they didn't do anything to address it because those claims are still coming in and they're still having problems. They spend millions of dollars redoing their infrastructure under somebody's relative or some friend or trying to do it on the cheap, whatever the case may be, and they leave themselves susceptible. Also, to Dan's point, at this time, the terrorists see it as something that's an easy target. So they're just going to keep coming after us. They're going to keep coming after the United States because they don't think the United States government will do anything about it.
You know, before I let you guys go, Jenny, I want to ask you about this. All this talk about the New York Times. The Times is coming under fire for a controversial article claiming waving the flag is only something GOP voters do, which is, seemingly now you walk around my neighborhood, if you see an American flag out in front of someone's house, they're probably Republican. The Times talked to New York residents, and one of them said she wasn't sure about that because there was some flag waving or something else. And another noted that Trump supporters have fervently embraced the flag while liberals have shied away from it. And they, you can guess, like I said, which political party people are from based on whether or not they have an American flag outside their house. No, Jenny?
I think that that is a sad state for America. The fact is, liberals are abandoning the American flag and embracing the gay pride flag or the Black Lives Matter flag or whatever the flag of the month is. The American flag should unite and does unite all Americans. It's the one flag every single American can stand under and be proud of. And I would say to the New York Times that, yes, in New York, in Washington, D.C., in Northern Virginia, the people who have a flag out are probably people who are Republican and supported Trump and they're conservatives. But when you go to the rest of the country, I think regardless of what your politics are, you love the flag, you love America still. And when it comes to the 4th of July, you want to celebrate. I think the New York Times is out of touch with America.
Well, we've known that for quite some time. That's why their subscription rate was down so heavily. Dan, this is something, though. Like, look, I think the flag, the U.S. flag, has been universally the symbol of freedom and unity and democracy around the world. Look, if you are in trouble anywhere in the world and you see an American flag, you head towards it because it has helped. The American flag stands for something that has never been done before in the history of the world, which is the maximizing the freedom and the least amount of government oppression on people. Why are they turning to this? The American flag isn't so great anymore.
Because they don't see it the way that you and I do, Carl. They see it as a symbol of oppression. They see it as the symbol that enslaved millions of people and oppressed millions of people without ever recognizing that on July 1st through the 3rd, 1863, we fought the bloodiest single battle in American history at Gettysburg as part of a broader effort to free slaves. They're historically ignorant and they view America as the systemic oppressor. Hell, you even had Mara Gay, who is a New York Times writer and MSNBC contributor, a few weeks ago say, I saw people flying the American flag. I believe it was on Long Island or Staten Island. Said, I was afraid because I didn't know what they were going to do or what they stood for. They're Americans. And we've gotten to this hysterical point where you have about 20%, I believe it's a small number, 20% of Americans who frankly despise their country and view it as standing for something that it never, ever did. They're blind in their own hatred.
Yeah, it is shocking to me that anybody would think that the American flag stands for anything but freedom and democracy around the world. I just don't get it. Jen, Ari, and Dan, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Welcome back. I'm Amanda Belhanty, and it's time for the catch-up. A few stories to take you behind the headlines, plus some others you may have missed. The Pentagon has announced it now expects the total withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan to be completed at the end of August. Defense officials are now focused on continuing a U.S. diplomatic presence in the area and maintaining communication with the Afghan military. President Joe Biden had previously instructed officials to complete the military withdrawal by September 11th, the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on the U.S. Meanwhile, an hours-long standoff with a group of heavily armed men that partially shut down a Massachusetts highway ended with 11 suspects in custody. The men refused to put down their weapons or comply with authorities' orders, claiming to be from a group that does not recognize our laws before taking off into a wooded area. Police are working to determine what charges the members of the group will face. And professional golfer Gene Siller was shot and killed while at the Pine Tree Country Club in Georgia over the weekend. Siller was reportedly responding to an issue on the course when a man in a white pickup truck pulled his vehicle onto a sand trap nearby. When Siller went to talk with the man in the vehicle, he was shot and later died. Now, the truck reportedly had the bodies of 2 other men in the bed of the vehicle. According to the police, the suspect has not been caught, and the motive...
Thank you, Amanda. I'm glad nobody was seriously injured there. Pope Francis is in the hospital recovering from a scheduled intestinal surgery. Let's go to Rome correspondent Alex Salvi for the latest. Alex, what can you tell us about this?
We're receiving more information today about the status of Pope Francis following what they're calling a precautionary surgery on Sunday. Now, the timing of that announcement is perhaps what raised initial eyebrows. It was just yesterday where the Pope was addressing congregants right behind me, and 3 hours later, we heard from the Vatican that he would be undergoing that operation. And just this morning, we finally received some details. The Vatican releasing a statement saying that the operation was 3 hours long, that doctors removed half of his large intestine, and that he is going to be staying in the hospital for the next 7 days. And this does mark the most significant medical issue for the Pope since being elected to that office back in 2013. He has been forced to miss some events over the past year due to sciatica issues in his lower leg and back. He's also had shortness of breath. That's a result of part of his lung being removed as a young man back in Argentina. But there's no doubt that this does mark the most significant medical issue for the Pope. And when it comes to the secrecy, why they announced it last minute on Sunday, they're now saying that they wanted to make sure to avoid crowds at the medical facility where he's now resting, and that's why they were announcing it so late, and that's why perhaps there was a little bit of cloud of secrecy around this entire development. But nonetheless, Vatican officials are saying that they expect the Pope to return to his full responsibilities as soon as he recovers from this issue in the short future. Carl?
Well, there you have it. Thank you, Alex. Coming up, a healthy 13-year-old Michigan boy dies just 3 days after receiving the second Pfizer vaccine. Dr. Hibbard will be here to join us